Hello wonderful person, this is Anton, and in today's video we're actually going to be talking about an interesting proposal coming out of a Spanish university that is potentially going to be changing the way that the space industry works when it comes to satellites. And it's possibly going to solve two problems: space junk and also maintaining satellites in orbit. Let's learn about this, and welcome to What the Math. So this person on the screen that you see is a researcher from a Spanish university, also known as UC3M, and his name is Gonzalo Sanchez Arriaga. And he's actually currently discussing this new proposal that they came up with that might actually revolutionize the space technology, in the sense that it's going to create a very low cost, low to maintain propulsion system for satellites and also for the International Space Station that's potentially going to basically create something that will make our life a lot easier. Well, let's actually just start with a simple simulation using Universe Sandbox. And here we actually are going to go to Earth and maybe place a few satellites around Earth, just so I can actually show you what's going on. And so here we have just a few of the Voyager spacecraft orbiting around our planet Earth. And I'm also going to soon enable the magnetosphere, which will kind of help you understand what's happening. So right now the problem that we have is that we have like thousands and thousands of these objects, including tiny pieces, orbiting around our planet and basically creating almost like a cloud of debris that's potentially going to prevent us from traveling to space in a few decades. This is what we can unofficially refer to as space junk. We also have another problem. Things like the International Space Station needs to constantly use a lot of material to burn in orbit to basically maintain its orbit, because even in this particular region of space, you actually are still experiencing a little bit of a drag from the air, and your orbit slightly declines every once in a while. So every few months, International Space Station actually has to boost its speed to re-establish its orbit and to maintain a constant orbit. But the researchers from UC3M proposed a very interesting idea based on a phenomenon known as the Lorentz drag. Now let me actually show it to you first. This is from a video by Hedgehog TH, and so here you can kind of see the Lorentz drag in effect. Now, let me just backtrack a little bit just to explain and show you what's happening. This right here is a simple copper tube. Basically, any metal that's conductive will work. And the other thing it has is a very strong magnet. If you take the magnet and you try to basically launch it through the copper tube, it's actually going to very, very slowly move through the system, because the magnetic forces interact inside the copper tube and create what would unofficially be known as a drag. So here you can actually slow down objects falling through air, I guess, and in a sense through space, by using this unusual magnetic effect. Now, what does it have to do with space and Earth? Well, if you remember correctly, our planet Earth is also somewhat magnetic. It's basically a relatively weak magnet. It has magnetosphere around it. And if you were to somehow use this magnetosphere to basically try to slow different objects down, you could potentially have them return into the Earth atmosphere without causing too much ruckus. Now, we're talking about space junk, of course. So let's say you have this satellite orbiting Earth, and from this satellite you're going to basically extend a very, 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 very long, thin tube of conductive material. And this is actually what they propose. So a long tube that extends from the satellite for maybe a kilometer or so can potentially be used for increasing and decreasing orbital speed using the Earth magnetosphere. Now, the actual proposal is still kind of being finalized, and it's currently being patented, so we don't really know all of the details, but the idea is pretty simple. Because the Earth surroundings possess a magnetosphere, and because you can have material that interacts with this magnetosphere, you can then use this electromagnetic energy to convert this into kinetic energy to accelerate or to decelerate satellites. So for the International Space Station, it means that you can actually use the solar energy, energy coming from the sun, and then convert it into electromagnetic energy that will accelerate the ISS. And so you don't have to use any more propellant anymore. You can actually just use this long conductive cable to increase the orbit by using the effects of magnetosphere. On the other hand, if you have a satellite that you actually want to have return to Earth and basically not stay in space and create more junk, you can use the energy and interaction of gravity and the magnetosphere. On the other hand, if you have a satellite that you actually want to eventually return to Earth so that it doesn't create more space junk, you could potentially use the special coating on this cable, or I guess on this unusual long object, to increase the electron emission properties of the sunlight and also the heat, and then essentially to convert this into orbital energy. Now, the actual physics behind it is pretty complex, so I'm not going to try to explain it in this particular video, and also because we don't really still know the details. But using this particular idea, you can then manipulate orbit based on the interaction of the sun, magnetosphere, and Earth gravity. And now this is actually something that we refer to as low work function tether, and basically it's all based on the interaction of several elements that are already present around our planet. Now, all in all, this is actually a pretty groundbreaking technology. It definitely will solve quite a lot of problems, especially if the proof of concept works, and we're going to find out if it does work maybe in the next few years, especially if the team gets the funding from various sources. But if this idea works around Earth, it means that we can potentially also use it for a lot of other opportunities, including maybe using our sun's magnetic field to somehow navigate around the solar system. Now, obviously, this is something that is still kind of futuristic, but for all we know, if it works around Earth, maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to take it outside of the inner solar system, and possibly even to objects like Jupiter that actually have the strongest magnetosphere in the solar system. Well, anyway, so that's all I wanted to mention for now, and if you actually want to check out this in more detail, I posted a few links in the description that will probably allow you to kind of explore this idea even further. And the video I showed you in the beginning is actually in Spanish, so if you do speak Spanish, you might be able to understand a little bit more. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about in this video, and hopefully you learned something from it. And hopefully in the next few years, we'll actually be able to explore this a little bit further and maybe even create something that takes all of this space exploration business to the next new level. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Space out. And as always, bye-bye.